This looks like it hurt. This is a lot for 8 a.m.
Cool it!
And this is Jess Paul. I'm sure everybody's really excited to hear all of the weird ways that I've hurt myself, and what a great idea for a video on the first day that I actually get monetization on YouTube. It's been fun. I mean, I'm not advocating for what happened to me in these stories. I definitely didn't want what happened to me in these stories to have happened. This could basically be called Jess Demonstrates How Not to Human. If you're any level of fan, you might remember how much of a klutz and a failure I can be. So it wouldn't be a stretch to assume that I have hurt myself in ways that you wouldn't even imagine somebody could. I have 3 particularly entertaining stories about some minor injuries that I suffered from being me. So if you like gross or unsettling stories like I sometimes do, I think this video might be for you. And stick all the way around to the 3rd story because it's the only one that does have a picture. And we might or might not, I really need to decide if I'm going to actually show it. Our first story presents itself when I was about 9 or 13, you know, one or the other. I was walking through my living room minding my own business when all of a sudden a intensely sharp pain erupted through the bottom of my body. I can't imagine that at that age, and knowing myself, it probably would have been like a "ah!" kind of scream that came out after that. I immediately sat down or got off my feet to examine what was going on. That there was something lodged in between my 4th and final toe. I realized that a toothpick had broken off. So we're talking about a splintered, half broken off toothpick in between my 4th and my pinky toe. Better pick that up. If I have a scar, I don't look there very often. Let me see. I don't actually even know what foot it was. I don't see anything. Am I a crier? Am I a crier? Yes. I pretty automatically go to crying whenever I'm in distress. And I pretty specifically remember just like kind of cry screaming all through the process of my mom trying to tweezer out this piece of a toothpick. Even just imagining what that must feel like to have the business end of a toothpick lodged into your foot in the most sensitive of places. I think anybody would be horrored. On the subject, while we're here, there's something that I've wanted to talk to you guys about for a little while. If you have been around on my social media for like longer than a couple years, you may or may not remember a post that I ended up finding one day about myself when I Googled myself, which I do like a couple times a month. As my own public relations manager, I try to catch any news that's out there in the World Wide Web about me. It's usually all stuff that I post myself. But one time, I found a website that I never expected really to find myself on. It's called WikiFeet, and I guess if anybody does have such an interest, it exists. I myself do not shame anybody's quirks and kinks. Mostly. But I myself don't necessarily understand. I found a profile of me on this website a couple years ago and jokingly posted about it on my Instagram. To be honest, I thought that it was an automatic profile that was created along with every IMDb account because it definitely was about me. It had my birthday, it had certain links and details about me that, again, you could get from IMDb. So I always really just thought it was funny and brushed it off. Recently, though, as I was explaining this to a friend of mine, I had them look it up. And I had not visited this site in the couple years since I actually posted about it for the first time on Instagram. And I realized that my profile was collecting pictures of my feet. Like any kind of picture that included my shoes, me sitting down. Some I don't even exactly know where they're from. Like they're definitely of me, but they're like the bottom half of me and I'm really not sure. And I'm all for it. You know, any publicity is good publicity, right? If it's been any of my viewers out there that have been keeping this profile up for me, I appreciate you. If that doesn't say you're on your way to becoming a D-list celeb, I don't know what does. I'm grateful. My second dramatic injury is actually one of the very few drunk stories that I have in my entire history. I'm not a huge drinker. She says that she's about to pop a bottle of wine on her live stream because of getting into the YouTube partner program. No, but honestly, it's a very rare occasion. I probably drink like only a couple times a year because usually I make a fool of myself and have a really bad time. But in my college years, I was trying to be that crazy college girl at a Methodist college where the most exciting thing in town was an antique shop. But there was this one night where I went all out and I pre-gamed before I went out with my friends. And I remember being in the dark of the night trying to text on my phone in my self-proclaimed Nicki Minaj heels that I was so in love with. Oh, more about the feet. And I so vividly remember, while I was blinded by my screen with basically darkness around me, I accidentally stepped off of the sidewalk onto the grass without knowing it and took one of those 10-step running falls. Like, I knew it was going to happen eventually. I ended up going down on my knee, and I was really upset that I ripped my favorite pair of leggings. I had, like, a grand total of 3 pairs of leggings. Now I have, like, 15. And so I kind of just dusted myself off and started, again, stumbling back to a frat that I was supposed to be at. Now, let me reiterate. Again, I don't drink a lot, and when I was at this particular party, I was that friend who was like the cliche sloshed girl in the group that couldn't get her together. I finally found my friends, and my other friend, also named Jessica, was trying to like get with this cool guy. She was standing out on the porch talking to him, and what did I do but bother her? And like most frat houses do, this one had a couple permanently outside couches, as in an already piece of garbage that they found out on the side of the road and decided to make a staple of their porch furniture. So to greet my friend Jessica, I immediately jumped onto the couch, knees first, quite like the first story. I felt a sharp pain on a very specific part of my body. I had basically just been impaled with a rusty-ass spring. I'd only hoped that I had gotten my 10-year tetanus shot within this window and just spent the next few days watching if it would change color. This is such great advice. At this point, I was like in my early 20s. Of legal age, but immediately started screaming like I was 9 or 13. I don't know if it was the reason why we left, but we definitely didn't stay for long. We rounded up all of my friends, and I remember being in the back of a loaded car crying, "Oh my god, there's blood everywhere!" Jessica eventually turned on the light before we left the parking lot, and I could see that there was like one slight trickle of blood coming out of a pretty sizable cut on my knee. It was actually a pretty gnarly cut, despite me not actually bleeding out. But I definitely was okay enough to be continuously crying, "God, take my knees, not my heels," which again were a $20 pair of pleather pumps from Body Central. Can't say I feel the same way now. And my last story of an epic minor injury that I've experienced in my lifetime is when I almost cut off the top of my finger with an X-Acto knife while making my donuts. This is my best example of me being blatantly careless, doing something that should have never been dangerous. When I would be making my donut crowns, one thing that I would do with my supplies in order to get every last drop was to cut open almost empty bottles of paint in order to get the last little bits out. Because I'm a cheap hoe, we know this. So instead of cutting the bottles easily in half with a pair of safety scissors, what I used to do was cut them vertically with an X-Acto knife. I think that I was trying to get as much easy access to the inside as possible, but when you have a fresh X-Acto knife, this could pretty easily go wrong. So I'm hastily slicing open my bottle, and all of a sudden, I just kind of stop. This was me in my mid-20s. It was 2017. And immediately after the blade had sliced through my skin, I just felt a sea of calm. Because I knew that freaking out doesn't help anything. I looked at my finger, and there was a noticeable flap hanging off of the top of my middle finger on my left hand. It was disconnected enough that it looked kind of like a dog ear that was half hanging off. So quickly but efficiently, I went over to my medicine cabinet and began wrapping it up kind of tightly in order to both stop the blood flow, there was a lot, and kind of put it back into place so that as it began to heal, it would be kind of where it should have been. Yeah, it did leave a scar, but you'd have to look really closely, and no one really gives a fuck, including me. Bonus story. This isn't an injury, but it's a story that I like to tell when it comes to my body and my blood. It's just an experience that, like the rest of these, I feel are kind of rare and not many people have experienced this exact same thing. When I was in college and high school, they would very often have blood drives, and whenever they would, I would try my best to get there and donate. I'm somebody who has great veins and who also isn't really scared of needles unless they have something dangerous in them. One time though, when I was in college, I was lying on the table and they were finishing me up, basically clamping off the bag. I don't know if this was normal, but I was lying there, and as the nurse was finishing up the bag, she clamped it and put it on my lap in order to just put it somewhere and then go do something else. So I had like 90-degree blood that had just been in my body, now just sitting on my lap. Again, I don't really get grossed out by this kind of stuff. I'm kind of fascinated. To be in my body one moment and then all of a sudden be sitting on my lap in a hot bag was pretty interesting. Raise your hand in the comments if you almost threw up from watching and listening to this video. Family-friendly content, here I come. Selfism. Selfism. Hey guys, coming at ya is going to be something that has to do with whatever selfism is about. Beauty and makeup when I barely know how to do either. Like and sub if this face is likable and subbable. And this is my outro. Bonus story. The reason why I thought of this video this week is because recently I used a 5-year-old eyeliner for the last time and practically infected one of my eyes. I'm very mad at myself that I did not get a picture because it would have been a great one. But I basically blew up my left eye to twice its size after I used my favorite brown eyeliner that makes my eyes not look dead inside. But because it was so old, I sprayed the inside with hand sanitizer, and it mixing with the rest of the solution ended up turning it into a glue that stuck to my eyes for like 2 days. So I basically just cold compressed it and added some bacitracin zinc, which you're not supposed to put in your eyes. This whole video, if you were wondering, is what you shouldn't do.